Hey there, Scaling Up Nation. It's Trace Blackmore. And if there's one thing we know as water treaters, it's that success comes from building strong partnerships. And that's exactly what North Metal and Chemical Company is all about. My friends at North Metal are committed to creating long-term relationships built on trust, reliability, and innovation. Their industry-specific expertise means they understand your challenges and work tirelessly to provide great Northwest products along with a personal touch. With dedicated technical support, North Metal and Chemical Company stands out as a partner who truly cares about your success in the industrial water treatment space. Head over to scalinguph2o.com/north and start building a partnership you can count on. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/north. North Metal and Chemical Company, serving the water treatment industry since 1921. What sets Pyxis Lab apart in the water treatment industry? It's our commitment to innovation, accuracy, and user-friendly solutions. Our OxyPanel Plus eliminates reagents and simplifies maintenance. Our PTSA expertise ensures precise chemical dosing. Our radar level sensors offer cutting-edge monitoring capabilities. But more than that, we understand that water treatment professionals deserve better tools. That's why we're constantly pushing the boundaries of water treatment technologies. Ready to experience the Pyxis Lab difference? Go to scalinguph2o.com/Pyxis. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/PYXIS. Pyxis, because water professionals deserve better. Welcome to the Scaling Up H2O podcast, the podcast where we scale up on knowledge so we don't scale up our systems. I'm Trace Blackmore, the host of the Scaling Up H2O podcast. And Nation, we are scaling up all about Legionella knowledge this month and waterborne pathogens. Every month of August, we do Legionella Awareness Month, and this is all about how do we share the best information for you so you are getting the best information to share with your customer. Every August, we do this, and I think it's one of the most critical topics in water treatment. And it isn't just about compliance, it's about protecting public health. It's empowering you with knowledge and having meaningful conversations with your clients so they can ultimately make better decisions. All this month, we're going to have different guests on that are going to let you know what they know about Legionella and waterborne pathogens. And every August, I always open up with, hey, what the heck is this Legionella stuff? What is something that maybe I can teach you? What's something I can remind you of that maybe you haven't heard in a very long time? And how do you have these conversations with your clients? So as I'm talking about the topic of Legionella, I want you to think, how are you going to relay some of the things that you're learning on this podcast to your clients so they can make better decisions? Because that's what it's all about. How do we empower our clients to make the best decisions possible so we don't have other issues later on down the road? Well, I always like to start out with explaining to everybody how we got the name Legionella or Legionnaires disease. And it was in July 1976. So just last month, several years ago, more than 2,000 American Legion veterans gathered at the Belford Stratford Hotel in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania for their annual convention. And this was a very patriotic gathering that became a medical crisis that really reshaped water protocols around the world. We had never heard or thought about what took place during this convention. So once this convention started, a couple of days went by, and then attendees began getting seriously ill with the pneumonia-like symptoms. The first patient was Ray Brennan. He was a 61-year-old retired Air Force captain. And he was one of the first to die of this mysterious injury that was going on. Then others started passing away, and a pattern was unmistakable. They all were referenced to have gone to this convention, and nobody knew what was going on. Well, Dr. Ernest Campbell was a physician in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, and he was the one that noticed the connection with the first three patients, and they all shared one common factor. They were all present at that American Legion gathering. So there was an outbreak. There was the first Legionella outbreak, and it affected 182 people. There were 29 fatalities of the 182 people, and the majority of them were older. They were immune compromised, but they still didn't know what was going on at this time. It was a mystery disease, and it baffled investigators for quite a while until January 18th, 1977, when researchers identified that the causative agent was a previously unknown bacteria. Now, because it was unknown, they had to name it. They named it Legionella in honor of the American Legion Convention, where it was originally recognized. And then later, they found that the specific species responsible for that, and they named that Legionella pneumophila. Now, right before this, there was a panic. People did not know what was going on. In fact, if you look at a Time magazine back in that period, they called it the Red Death, and they said, "Are the Russians trying to kill our veterans?" Now, this discovery allowed scientists to go back and look at previous cases, and there was an earlier outbreak that was misunderstood back in 1968 in Pontiac, Michigan, and this was a much milder case than what we saw at the Legionnaires convention. So what they did, they actually named this outbreak what we know now for Pontiac fever. And this is a non-pneumonia form of when you get sick from Legionella bacteria. So that's a little history about where we named and found Legionella. Of course, Legionella was around way before we discovered it, but that was the first time we did discover it and we did something with it. Now, to effectively manage Legionella risk, water treatment professionals need to understand distinctions between the bacteria itself and the disease that it causes. And a lot of times we will use the term Legionella interchangeably, but it is not. Legionella is the actual bacteria. Now, it is a gram-negative bacteria that has over 60 known other species that are all in water. So if we are to test all these water samples, most likely we are going to find Legionella bacteria. Now, not all of those species are going to cause Legionnaire's disease. Now, Legionnaire's disease is the name that we give when you get the pneumonia form, and the illness altogether is called legionellosis, and this is all disease that is caused by the Legionella bacteria. Now, the two distinct forms that we normally talk about, we've already mentioned, that's Legionnaire's disease and Pontiac fever. So those are the two. Now, what are the differences between those two? Legionnaire's disease is the pneumonia type disease, where Pontiac fever is the non-pneumonia type disease. Legionnaire's disease typically develops in 2 to 10 days after exposure, and early symptoms are like the flu. High fever, coughs, shortness of breath, muscle pains, headaches, and it can progress to a very bad pneumonia that is visible with chest x-rays. Now, there are also some symptoms like nausea, vomiting, diarrhea that patients have experienced. Also, other neurological symptoms, including confusion. Now, in contrast, Pontiac fever is much milder, and it really does resemble the flu, and it does not turn into pneumonia. We now know how it was named, And a majority of the water treatment population has probably contracted this in one part of their life or several, and they just thought it was a regular flu. Now, they might have gotten rid of it by themselves. They might have gone to the doctor and the doctor gave them the right antibiotics, whether they knew it was caused by Legionella bacteria or not. And then when they felt better, they went back to work and they probably never thought about it again. Now, most healthy people, that's how you would experience that, if you experience that at all. Now, the issue is when we get frail and infirm individuals, they are way more susceptible to this bacteria. And that's why a lot of our standards are for the elder population, are for the infirm, are for hospitals, medical office buildings. This is where most of the work originally took place. And now we're seeing more and more places take Legionella monitoring, Legionella awareness, Legionella plans a lot more seriously and more widespread because we're learning more and more about it. Now, if you have traveled overseas, so we are in the United States where the studio is, most likely you have seen other countries take Legionella bacteria a lot more seriously than we do here in the States. But nation, it is catching up. We, of course, know what's going on with New York. There are a lot of other municipalities that are catching up with New York, and they are learning a lot about what New York has learned since they have instituted the laws that they have imposed. Now, some things are great, some things could be better, and now other municipalities are saying, hey, how do we learn from that? How do we make our laws better? So most of us are ahead of the game because we do have knowledge about all the things that we're talking about this month, but there aren't as many people that know about it that are talking about it. And what will happen is a customer will come to us. They'll ask us to maybe do a test once a year just to check the box that they are doing something. And a lot of us will say, yes, we will do that. And we won't have a further conversation. Now, nation, if you want to do that, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But you have to have the conversation that it's not going to tell you anything about the system. In order for us to know about the system, at a minimum, we need to check each and every season so we can see the effects of the season on the system. And I would argue we even need to do more than that so we can actually see the effects of our program. So that's why a water management plan is so important, because now that is for that specific system. And then we take the details of that specific system. We then apply measures of how we are going to check to make sure that any potential hazard points are getting checked so they're not becoming hazardous. And if they do, we already have prescriptive measures within that plan that tell us exactly what to do. And then we follow up to make sure that we solve the issue. We learn from that plan on the entire process. We constantly update that plan with better information about that specific system, and we continue to run that plan. I believe that our lives would be so much easier if everybody had a plan like that. Unfortunately, not as many people that should do, and they look on us to give them information about what they need to do. Now, the issue with giving information after a test is taken and it's determined positive for, let's say, a decent amount of Legionella bacteria. Now, there's 60 different species. And we're going to talk throughout this month about some of the different species, as well as which are some of the most hazardous. Legionella pneumophila definitely is the top on that one. So let's say we found Legionella pneumophila, and it's just a little minute amount. And the customer starts going crazy because they are paying you for water treatment and they are confusing that with a water management plan. The issue with that is you know that your water treatment is to make that equipment last as long as possible. It's making that equipment run as efficient as possible. That is your job. The miscommunication is the customer assumes that you're also taking care of pathogenic bacteria, i.e., Legionella. So if we are paying for your water treatment service, how could we possibly have Legionella in our system? You are not doing your job, but that's not the job that you were hired to do. And folks, if we're not having that conversation, trust me, something will happen and you'll be on the back end of that conversation. So it's my hope that you will start educating your customers that they need to do something about monitoring for Legionella and possibly other waterborne pathogens, but that is not the service that you provide in your water treatment program. Your water treatment program is for longevity and efficiency, not for Legionella eradication. Now, most likely you are very capable of doing a program like this, but it far exceeds what a normal program is. So we have to have that conversation. And that conversation should be what a water management plan is. What are the different parts of a water management plan? How do we now assemble a team so we can write a water management plan? And by the way, it is not just you and it's not just the engineer, it's an entire team. What are all of the people in the facility? What are their talents? What are their job descriptions? Who can you choose amongst that to make sure you have the right people on that plan writing committee? I would encourage you to have somebody from the medical background on that. I would encourage you to have somebody on the ownership level on that. I would encourage you that has somebody that has some experience with communication on that, and yourself and the engineer and all these other people. This is the plan writing committee, and this is how you're going to have a really inclusive plan. And if you want to learn more about what a plan should have in it, the CDC has this toolkit that really easily spells out what ASHRAE 188 prescribes. And I use that term loosely because ASHRAE 188 doesn't really prescribe what to do. They describe what you need to have. And then you, knowing that system and that team knowing that system, they are able to then write the exact plan for them that we're constantly updating as we're getting new information. Now, imagine if you are running a plan with a team like that, and now you get a positive hit. You know exactly what to do. There's no finger pointing. You've already talked about what to do, and you can take action. What I have seen happen so many times is a customer will say, hey, you don't do anything for Legionella. They're not going to say that. They're going to say, we're not doing anything for Legionella, so we want to do a test. And because of that test, we're then going to check the box that we're checking for Legionella. And that's as far as the conversation goes. Folks, don't let that conversation stop there. What you want to do is let them know that just one test is not going to tell you anything about the system. And then if you look for something, folks, if you look for something, you need to expect that you are going to find it. So now we get a positive test back and people are pointing fingers. Well, we have a water treatment program. You're not doing your job. No, I'm sorry, Mr. Customer. A water treatment program is to make sure the equipment can last as long as possible and it can run as efficiently as possible. It's not really around Legionella bacteria. Now we're pointing the fingers at each other. They're going to ask us what to do. We're going to ask them what they want us to do. And at that moment in time, emotions are high, and that's not the best time to have that conversation. By writing a plan, if a positive result comes back, we can then see, okay, how positive was it? What range did it come back in? And then we're going to look at the ranges on our plan, and that's going to allow us to make a corrective action. We've already made that determination. So at our company, when that happens, we will get a positive result back. It'll tell us exactly what to do within that range. And then within that range, we are then able to immediately go and take action because we've already gotten permission for it. And then we retest if that's what the plan says. Now, unfortunately, not all of our customers have water management plans. We are constantly having conversations like this with our customers. So, if you are a customer of ours, we urge you to get a water management plan. It makes your life easier. It makes our life easier. We know how to attack the problem as a unit with the customer, with the water treatment company. So, Nation, it's my hope that you have conversations like this. It's my hope that you're always educating your customer. And it's my hope that throughout this month, you are learning more and more about Legionella. Scaling Up Nation, we're going to take a quick break to hear from one of our sponsors. Today, I want to talk to you about a hidden threat lurking in your cooling water systems: biofilm. You know, that slimy stuff that causes all sorts of headaches for us water treaters. But don't worry, because I've got some great news for you. Our friends at AMSA have developed products that are absolute powerhouses when it comes to biofilm control. These aren't your typical products used in biofilm control programs. Oh no, they're much more than that. AMSA's products actually penetrate and break up those stubborn, gluey deposits. This means your biocides can work more effectively and at lower levels too. Plus, it weakens the biofilm matrix, allowing it to be washed away with the flow of water. By incorporating AMSA products into your biofilm control program, you can say goodbye to your concerns about microbiologically influenced corrosion, scale formation, reduced cooling efficiency, and even minimize the risk of Legionella in your systems. So if you want to clean it up and keep it clean, head over to scalinguph2o.com/AMSA to learn more about their innovative biofilm control solutions. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/AMSA. Trust me, your cooling water systems will thank you. Let's dive back in right where we left off. So I do want to get back to a couple more things about Legionella. So Legionella likes to grow between 95 and 115 degrees, and it can even grow up to 120 something degrees, which is ideal for our cooling towers. So what happens, Legionella bacteria comes in with the raw water source. It then gets recirculated in our cooling tower, our other HVAC systems. The temperature of the water is ideal where Legionella wants to grow. And then if we're not doing anything about it, it's allowed to grow to populations where it can be dangerous to other people. Now, Legionella has to be inhaled for us to get sick by it. Well, let's look at a cooling tower. That is a distribution device for little droplets to go out with the hot air that's coming out of the cooling tower. And that is the delivery device where people got sick at the original convention, the Legionnaires convention. They found Legionella bacteria in the cooling tower. And Nation, congratulations, you treat cooling towers, and that means forever and ever, cooling towers are always going to be guilty of having Legionella until they are proven innocent. Now, I know of a local case where the cooling tower was suspected, and it was not found in the cooling tower. It was found in a fountain. And a lot of people were taking pictures around a fountain. They were immune compromised and they got Legionella bacteria inhaled in their lungs. And they got the pneumonia form, which is Legionnaire's disease. And they had health complications because of that. But they looked in the cooling tower first. Now, as a water treater, you treat cooling towers, so you need to be aware of that. But you also need to be aware that one of the worst places is stagnant water, low flow, dead leg areas. Now, we did a detective H2O on this where we talked about dead legs, but this is probably one of the worst areas for Legionella just to grow like crazy. And what happens, the biofilm will slough off and then it will take that to other parts of the system and then create issues there. Now, biofilm is very important because this is where the communities form. This is where it's able to eat. This is where it's able to grow. The biofilm also protects it from things that we might put in it to kill it. So, making sure that we are keeping biofilm to a minimum is so important when we are treating for anything in heat transfer, but especially when we are making sure that we are trying to get rid of Legionella bacteria. Now, that is talking about what we say the utility water. Utility water is the heating and cooling or things that are used in process. Now, we also need to be aware of the domestic water and specifically hot water systems. Why hot water systems? Well, because of the temperatures that it likes to grow in. And a lot of times people won't have their hot water systems as hot as they can be. Well, obviously, because there's scalding issues with that. So if we keep our hot water systems at 140 degrees, we're probably not going to have very many Legionella issues there. But we probably are going to get some scald cases. And now we've got to mitigate, okay, well, what do we really adjust for? That's why tools like mixing valves and other things that you can do mechanically might allow you to have the best of both worlds. But this is why you have to have conversations with your customers, and you need to bring in the resources of other experts, maybe people that do things with plumbing. So you have all of the information, you know, all of the potential products that you can use so you can do a proper water management plan and not just look at the cooling tower. I mentioned the decorative fountains earlier, also hot tubs and spas. This is a place where it's also an issue because of the temperature. And then there are also a lot of humidification systems that can allow water droplets of affected water to then distribute throughout the facility. Now, you need to know what you should know in order to have conversations like that. And I've already mentioned some resources. The CDC, the Centers of Disease Control, has a toolkit that's very graphic oriented. It's very easy to read. It's very easy to kind of take through a customer and explain to them what ASHRAE 188 is. And for you out there as the industrial water treater, I would encourage you to get a copy of ASHRAE 188. It's only a couple dozen pages. It won't take you long to read, but now you actually know what it says. I am surprised at how many water treaters I talk to that reference ASHRAE 188, but they have never read ASHRAE 188. It's not a big document. It's definitely something that you can read very quickly. And now you know what it's saying, and now you can look at all the other resources out there to try to make sure that you have the best information to have the best conversation. Speaking of resources, if you go to scalinguph2o.com and go over to our Legionella resources page, you will see that every time we talk about Legionella or we get information about Legionella, we put it on that resources page so you can get all the information in one place and you can make the best decision for yourself after reading all of that content. Taking from me, I know how difficult it can be to source information, to find information, and then figure out what to do with it. Well, I wanted to take at least one of those steps out and make it easy for you to find, and then you can figure out what the next step is going to be about that. Definitely ASHRAE 188 is something that I recommend for everybody. And there are so many other standards out there. We've done a few shows on ST 108 that also deal with these conversations. We'll put links to that on our show notes page. But there are so many other standards that you might not be aware of. There's some requirements for the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid Services that you might be working with a particular institution that they are mandated against that. And if you don't know what that says, how are you going to be able to have those conversations? There's the ASSE standard 12,080, which a lot of us are getting certified in, and it tells us some things there. Do you know about that? So we try to make it very easy for you to see all the different guidelines. You can see where they are by going to that Legionella reference page on Scaling Up H2O. And Nation, that's really the key. Information is key. How much information can you gain so you can have the right conversation? And my advice is don't just read the information, but in your mind's eye, have the conversation with your customers about guiding them to make decisions about their water management plans. Nation, as we go into Legionella Awareness Month and as we go into the future, I fully believe that we are going to have more scrutiny when it comes to water and healthcare. I have no doubt that that's coming. We've seen that in some areas. I think it's going to be the new norm. Also, I think we're going to see, I know we're already seeing it, lots of enhancements when it comes to the way we test. We are also going to see, we are going to be required to do more testing and different types of testing. There's so much that's going on with AI. There's so much that's going on with monitoring. I have no doubt that those things are going to meet this conversation, and we're going to see a lot more technology integrated into waterborne pathogens. And all of these things are going to be built into building codes. We might see them into different laws. So Nation, it is in your best interest to make sure that you are in front of this so you can have the best conversations. And Nation, I have no doubt we're going to have some great conversations and some great interviews this entire month during Legionella Awareness Month. So I hope you tune in each and every week where we're going to have a new expert that hopefully is going to give you another part of that conversation that you are crafting to have with your customer. Now, Nation, always learning, I think, is a theme of this podcast. And it's my hope that you use this podcast each and every week to explore what you already know and challenge what you already think you know in a different way. So you are always learning more and you're learning in different ways. When somebody knows something one way, that's the only way they can explain it. When they know it 20 ways, they can explain it 20 ways, and they can mash up all those different 20 ways. And that means you can answer questions better. That means you can ask questions better so you can get to a better outcome. And I hope that we're not just talking about Legionella, we are talking about all things water treatment. And of course, all things water treatment, trying to get us to know something a little bit more and to make it fun while we're learning it is our friend James McDonald. And here is a brand new Water You Know.
Hello and welcome to Water You Know, the game show where we find out what you know about industrial water treatment, drop by drop. So pump up your brain, take out that test kit of knowledge, and prepare to answer this week's question on What Do You Know? Today's question is, why is barium chloride used in the standard hydroxide alkalinity test? Barium chloride is used to precipitate any carbonates, so the titration with acid will hopefully detect only the alkalinity associated with hydroxide alkalinity. I'm James McDonald, and thanks for playing along with us. Stay tuned for next week's episode of Water You Know.
Well, thank you, James. And James is definitely an expert when it comes to educating all of us in the water treatment community. And when it comes to meeting other experts, that can be difficult. And I want to make it as easy as possible for you. So please mark your calendars for August 7th at 6 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be having the Hang. That is just next week. And the Hang is fun, folks. It is something that you get to log into from your own place of business, from your own home, from wherever you are, so you don't need to make a trip anywhere, and you are guaranteed to learn some things that are going on in the industry. You are then guaranteed to meet people that are experts in their field and might be able to help you out with that problem that you are having right this very moment, or maybe one you are having 2 years from now that you haven't even thought about. We will have fun together. We will meet people, and that will be the most action-packed hour that you have probably done that entire week to meet new people and learn new things. So to sign up for the Hang, go to scalinguph2o.com/hang, and I will see you at 6 p.m. Eastern on August 7th. And of course, another favorite holiday that we celebrate, it is our at the top favorite holiday. That is Industrial Water Week. And folks, mark your calendars. It's always the first full week of October. It's going to be October 7th through 11th, where we will celebrate Pre-Treatment Monday, Boiler Tuesday, Cooling Wednesday, Wastewater Thursday, and then Careers on Friday. Nation, we've got great shows lined up for you during that entire celebration. But the thing I am so excited about is Detective H2O. It's one of my favorite things that James McDonald does. It's one of your favorite things that you hear on this podcast. And Nation, we are going to have a brand new episode, not just one like what we do in most years. We're going to have a brand new episode each and every day that week. And Nation, you are going to absolutely love it. Brand new episodes and brand new guest voice. And we're going to have fun with the guest voices because you have heard all of those guest voices before. So you get to guess who that guest voice is. So if you're not connected with us on our social media, go to LinkedIn. Either look for Scaling Up H2O, either look for me or look for both. We will make sure to get all that content out to you, and you will be able to play along with us to guess who that guest voice is. It should be a lot of fun, and I know you are going to love it. Nation, I hope you mark your calendars for October 7th through 11th, and I hope you celebrate that with your customers, with your team, with your family. Folks, that is our holiday. That is Industrial Water Week. We are industrial water treaters, and we need a holiday to celebrate. So make sure that you are celebrating that along with me, along with James, and everybody knows how awesome this industry is. Nation, make sure you are tuning in each and every Friday this month because we are going to have a brand new episode for you all around the topic of Legionella awareness. You are all learning more from our guests. And remember, it's all about having better conversations with our customers. Have a great week and have a great Legionella Awareness Month. Preparing for the CWT exam can be daunting, but our Certified Water Technologist Prep course makes it easier. With valuable study tools and a 100-question practice exam, you'll be ready to tackle that test with confidence. Visit scalinguph2o.com/CWT prep to sign up today.